that I can't shoot at if I'm playing that way. And if I do play that way, then I just forget those holes. I'll go ahead and just try to make par and move on, not try to be the bold player, play the shot that I can't play the shot that I haven't practiced. Get the ball in the center ring, get my par and move on. When the pin's in the right and I can be aggressive, go after it. So here's the first one, to the left pin placement. Okay, I've hit the ball to the hole. The ball went pretty straight, but my error was to the right. The ball should end up just to the right of the hole. Now, if I were really playing well and really felt confident of a right to left shot, then I'd aim the ball at the center of the green, which is really the safer shot if you're playing well. Close the club face slightly at address, aim it up the center of the green, and play a little draw and work myself back to the hole. Now, to the right pin placement, that pin's in the back part of the green. I need one more club. So I would take, instead of a 7-iron, I'll take a 6-iron, aim it at the center of the green, and cut the ball back to that pin, using the wind and the shape of the shot to get the ball close. But always playing slightly to the left of the hole to play to the safe side. Playing percentages, playing the right shot, choosing the right shot for you and for the pin placement on the green. It's very important. Here I think I need to be observant. I've outdriven my playing partner by 2 or 3 yards, so we're both approximately the same distance from the green, and he's going to play first. Now I can learn from him. I just want to sort of quietly look into his bag here, which is perfectly legal. Find out what club he's played. Well, he's pulled out a 5-iron. Well, let's see how he hits it. Pretty good looking shot. He didn't hit it very hard. He hit an easy 5. He hit it solid. It was the right club. He's up by the hole. Now, what did I learn here? Well, I learned that, first of all, my opponent, who I know how he hits the ball compared to me, has played a 5-iron. He knows that, or I know that he has hit it solidly. I know that he's played the right club. I now then can make that judgment on my shot. Now, I can do this any place on the golf course. You can't touch your opponent's bag. You can't ask him what club he played, but you can certainly observe and look. And you can do this on the par 3s. You can do it any place on the golf course. So learn from your opponent. Learn from your playing partner. I think it'll help you choose the right club. We've talked a lot about all the hazards up around the green, where the bunkers are, where the fat of the green is, where the front of the green, the back of the green, where water might be or out of bounds, or what all our problems could be. And playing to the safe side and working our way to the hole. But we really haven't said that what we're really shooting at is the hole. And don't ever lose sight of that. Because once you've calculated all the other things about where the fat of the green and the safe side is, the object is to get the ball as close to that hole as you can. So what I try to do is, once I put all those things in my mind, make up my mind what kind of shot I'm going to play, I then focus on where I really want that ball to go, not what all the problems are and what the fat of the green is. I'm going to sit here and focus in that, yes, I'm going to hit it 6 feet left of that hole, let the wind drift it a little bit to the right, and I'm going to focus in on that, get up here. I know the shot I'm going to play. I'm going to make up my mind what I'm going to do. I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to hit this ball with a swing that I know is right before I can change my mind and before I put a negative thought in it. Once I get ready to hit it, then I hit it. And if I play that way, I find that my results will be closer to the hole more often than not. A top professional will usually hit between 12 and 15 greens around in regulation, but that won't stop him from beating par a lot of the time. Here's why. Here we are at the 13th hole at Loxahatchee Club. It's a par 5, and I'm left with about a 40-yard shot here short of the green. I've got maybe 20 yards of green and 20 yards of a fairway in front of me, and the shot has a little bank in front of the hole, maybe 18, 20 feet. So what we're going to talk about today is the sand wedge pitch shot. Throwing the ball up in the air and also taking the ball and hitting it into the bank and bouncing it up. The two shots that I would play around the green with a sand wedge. First of all, the first shot is played with the bounce of the club. In other words, the back end of the club. If you look at this, it's sticking up in the air. And if you would see if it was sitting on a shelf or sitting on the ground, you'd see that that leading edge is about 1/4 of an inch up in the air. Now, that's the way I want to play the shot. I want to make sure that when I contact the golf ball, that this sole of the club is what hits the ground, not the leading edge. And to do that, I make sure that the handle of the club does not pass the middle of my body until after it makes contact with the golf ball. The only thing that hits the ground is the bounce of the club, and the ball pops up in the air. Exactly the same way you would play a sand shot. That's the number 1 shot, and I'll show you what I mean. Doesn't really make a whole lot of difference where you play it in the stance. I played most all my shots somewhere off the left heel for all clubs, so it really doesn't make a whole lot of difference. You play it, if you want to hit a little higher, you move it up in the stance. You hit a little lower, you move it back. But it's not really that important. It's where you're comfortable, but your hands are right about even with the golf ball. Club face slightly open, a slightly open club, a slightly open stance. I break the club off the ball. Break my wrists, break the club right up in the air, and release the club from here so that my hands remain in this position here, and the club is released up and under. So here we are, picking it up and under. One more time. Here are hands even, head remains in position. Contact the ball with my hands here. The ball is thrown up in the air and dropped very softly. Now the second shot that I might play from this position, I take the bounce out of play and bring the leading edge into play. By doing that, I move my hands forward, because here I'm going to play a lower shot with a sand wedge. I want to put spin on the ball, and the ball's going to hit into the bank, take one good bounce, and check. To do that, I don't necessarily move the ball much back in my stance. I just move my hands a little forward and my weight a little forward. And I pick the club up fairly abruptly, hold on very firmly with the left hand, and pull that down and across the ball. That drives the ball a little lower. And into the bank. I'll show you one more time. I just move my hands a little forward and my weight a little forward. And I pick the club up fairly abruptly and pull that down and across the ball. Ball pops up and then checks. Hits into the bank and checks up. You notice that I took a divot with the second one. That's because the leading edge gets into the ground. Club went right down in there and picked that divot right up. With the first shot, there is no divot because the leading edge doesn't get into the ground. Both shots are effective shots. Both shots are good shots. Half the fellas play the soft shot. The other half of the fellas on the tour might play the spin shot. I think you choose the one of your preference. They're both very effective. The second club, or the pitching wedge, and third technique I want to talk about is for little shots that, here we are, maybe 10 yards short of the green, and maybe 20 yards of green, and I really don't want to pitch the ball all the way to the hole. I want a little bit more run, but it's a little too far away to be playing a total pitch and run through this area. So with a pitching wedge, I might play a couple of different kinds of shots, but basically I'm going to play just a normal golf swing. That. Use a little bit of wrist and let the ball run. There are times when I'm going to play it very firm and have very little wrists. And I think it's really a preference to you. Which way do you feel comfortable? I see a lot of fellows go out on the tour and they just sit there and they pick the club right up, never move their hands. They leave their hands right there. Play the shot that way. Other fellas never break their wrists at all. They're just right back, right through. I don't think it makes a lot of difference which way you play it. It's whatever you're comfortable with, whatever works for you. Pitching wedge is sort of a compromise between pitching the ball clear up in the air with a sand wedge and running it totally with a 6, 7, or 8 iron. The next shot I want to discuss is a little pitch and run. It can be played with a 6 iron, 7 iron, 8 iron, whatever you're comfortable with playing it off the green. It can be played with 4 or 5 iron, or even up 9 iron or pitching wedge. But I play this shot a little differently than I do the pitch shots. I change my grip here. I use a putting grip. And what I use is a reverse overlap grip, the same as I use with my putter. Now there's 2 ways of playing a little pitch and run. And I think that one shot would be to play it exactly as you do a putt, with the club straight up and down, and just use a putting stroke. One more time. That's a good method. A lot of fellas use that, and it works very, very well. But the method I use, and I think that suits me better under pressure, is that I take the ball and play it right off my right foot, maybe about 6 inches off my right foot. I move my hands well ahead, have the club on the toe of the ground, or the toe of the club on the ground, the heel up, and my weight on my left foot, and try to hit halfway down on the ball, halfway on the top of the ball, not underneath the ball, but on top of the ball, and hit it low and drive it into the ground and make it run. The reason I use this shot is that you can play that shot with any lie. You don't need a decent lie to play it. The other shot, you have a tendency to want to catch it a little heavy sometimes, and the consistency's not as good. So I play the ball back here, pick the club up, hit it down, and make it run like a putter. One more time. Both shots are good shots. Both shots are effective. Choose the one that you like best for your game. The next shot I want to discuss is putting the ball off the green. You might putt the ball from 2 feet off the green, 6 feet off the green, 20 feet off the green. Here I'm about 7 or 8 feet off the green. I've got 50 feet of green to roll the ball on. And it's could be a chip and run shot, could be a pitch shot, could be a variety of shots could be played from here. But I think you choose the one you're comfortable with. And I used to chip the ball all the time from around the green. And my first year on the tour, I'll never forget, I was playing with Arnold Palmer. And he says, "Why are you chipping that ball?" And I said, "Well, I just feel like it's the right shot to play." And I mean, meaning the right shot is meaning that's what is the right thing by the book to play. And Arnold said, well, you know, I've always putted the ball off the green because I never worried about what the right shot was. I always felt like my worst putt would be as good as my best chip. And if you start to think about it, if you putt a ball and you hit it 4 feet from the hole, you felt like you've hit a pretty bad putt. If you chip the ball from 4 to 4 feet or in, you feel like you've hit a pretty good chip. So from a mental standpoint, you know, it's much easier to feel like you're going to get the ball close to the hole with a putter than it is with a pitching wedge or a chip and run or whatever club you choose to play. So I play every shot that I have the opportunity to play with a putter. Of course, that means I can't play it out of the rough, obviously, but if I have any kind of a smooth surface, if I have any place that the ball will run somewhat uniformly, I'll use a putter from off the green. And I do it exactly the same way as I would putt any other putt on the green. I just hit it a little bit harder for the fringe and then let the ball run. Hit one more here. And remember, all I'm trying to do is get the ball up somewhere around the hole where I can make the next putt. I'm not trying to hold this, although I find that I'll hold far more putts from off the green than I will chips off the green. Well, now that we've talked about how to play all the shots around the green, whether we play a pitch shot, whether we play a pitch and run, or whether we play a chip and run, or whether we play a putt from off the green or a Texas wedge, we got to figure out, when do you use them? How do you choose which club to play? Well, I suppose that you could ask 100 people and you get 100 different answers of what their favorite shot is. And that's really the whole crux of this issue, is that what is their favorite shot? What is your favorite shot? Which shot do you feel you can play the best? I think of one of these shots you've got to try and master, because when you really need a shot, you've got to be able to play it. Now, obviously, it won't work for every situation, but it'll work for most situations. And I think probably the most reliable of all of them is a sand wedge. 90% of the pros play 90% of their shots around the green with a sand wedge because they can carry the ball over most all the trouble. They can carry the ball to the hole, they can put spin on it, they can hit it dead, they can play a variety of shots. Some of the fellas play it with pitching wedges, and usually pitching wedges, you're carrying the ball onto the green, but you're getting a bit more run, you're letting the ball run. Some fellas will play the little pitch and run where they take a little 6 or 7 iron and they run it, land it short of the green and run it on up to the hole. Or from off the green, even this far, which is 20 yards, they might take a putter and run it on up. I don't care which shot you choose to use. Choose the one that is best for you and you're comfortable with, and when you get in a tight situation, you think you're going to get a good result. I said before that if you can putt the ball off the green, it's the best way to get the ball close to the hole. Well, here are 2 little shots just off of the fringe where you can't really hit a putter. But there are other clubs that make the ball react very similar to a putter. First of all, is I take a shot here on a lie that's maybe 6-8 inches off the green, and I try to take a sand wedge and make it react like a putter. How do I do that? Well, I take a putting stance, putting grip, take the sand wedge, and make sure that I use the leading edge and hit it right into the middle of the ball. Use this leading edge. Why not? You say, well, why wouldn't I use a putter? Well, the putter's got this big flat surface, and the leading edge has got a sharp penetrating surface. And anything that we have in the way, it will penetrate through. So we use a sand wedge just off the green and make it play just like a putter. One more time. Now the second shot, sort of learned it from Tom Watson. He calls it his scuzz shot. What that means, I don't have any idea. But what it is, you just sort of make some sort of an ugly swing at it, the ball just runs out there like a putter, just gets out of the high rough and runs like a putter. And the way he plays it most of the time with a pitching wedge or a 9-iron. Plays the ball up off his left foot, his hands even with the ball, club face square. Takes a very low swing rather than an abrupt swing, and makes sure that his hands and club continue through the ball. It's not hitting down on the ball, but you never turn the club over unless you want to make the ball run. But most of the time you want to make run for a long distance. You make the ball run very softly by coming out with a very square face. And it's played somewhat like this. Those are two very useful shots around the green that try to make the ball react like a little chip shot or a putt. And I think they'll be very helpful in helping you get a lower score. Here we are to the right of the 13th green at Loxahatchee in a grassy hollow, having to play a pitch shot over a bunker to a pin that's set on the downslope on the other side. The shot's a relatively difficult shot, but one that can be made with good technique. The technique of the shot is the same as I use when I play a sand shot or any other pitch shot around the green. I want to make sure that I use the sole of the club into the ground and not the leading edge. And as you can see, the leading edge is about 1/4 of an inch off the ground. That means that the club, as it was sitting on the shelf, was just like this. And to play that, I want to make sure that I repeat the way the club was sitting on the shelf by not letting the handle of the club pass the middle of my body until after I make impact with the ball. Okay, here's a good lie and a bad lie. Really doesn't make a difference what kind of lie you have, because the sole of the club, whether it hits at the ball, an inch behind the ball, 3 or 4 inches behind the ball, it's going to slip the club right under that whole ball turf area, and you really are going to produce a pretty good shot. The only thing that makes a difference is how much grass do you have behind the ball. No different than when you play a sand shot. How much sand do you have behind the ball? That determines on how hard you hit the golf ball. Okay, let's play the first shot here with a good lie. I play the ball basically somewhere up on the left foot, maybe up near the toe to the instep. Keep my hands even or behind the ball, slightly open club face. I break my wrists off the golf ball, get the club head up into the air, release the club so that the handle of the club doesn't pass the middle of my body. I then open the club face as I go through by opening my body. I let my body rotate open with a shot, just as though I'm taking the club, pitching it with a softball, or pitching a softball, or taking and serving a platter to somebody. It's just sort of very softly underneath the ball. Hit it somewhat like this. One more time. Keep my hands even or behind the ball. Release the club so that the handle of the club doesn't pass the middle of my body. I then open the club face as I go through by opening my body. Or if I have a bad lie, I take a little longer swing because I have a little bit more grass, but I play essentially the same shot. Pop the ball up in the air, hit it, and it rolls fairly softly. And again, I take a little longer swing, release the club so that the handle of the club doesn't pass the middle of my body. It's just sort of very softly underneath the ball. It's just one shot, one technique for all situations. Sure, there's going to be some situations it doesn't work on, and you have to improvise a little bit. But basically, this will work for about 95% of the shots that you have. I think we've covered how to play a bunker shot pretty well in Golf My Way 1, but let me just review slightly. Obviously, we're using the sole of the golf club. Use a slightly open club face. Sure the handle of the club does not pass the middle of the body until after you make contact with the sand. And we swing the club up fairly abruptly. Make sure we follow through and release the club. Very simple, very much. Here we are, boom, right here. Up and underneath the golf ball. Okay, but the one thing we haven't discussed is the strategy of bunker play. When do we spin the ball? When don't we spin the ball? When do we want to make the ball run? What do we want when we want to do other things? Well, the shot that we have right here, I've got a fairly steep bunker. I've got a bit of a downslope. The pin's relatively close. Not a particularly easy bunker shot. So I might want to put a little bit more spin on this shot than one where the pin would be maybe 30 or 40 feet back into the green. Well, how do we go about doing that? Well, to put a little bit more spin on a ball, I'm going to hit a little closer to it, have a little bit more open club face, and pick the ball, club up a little bit more abruptly. That will put not as much sand between the club and the ball. It'll be coming at a little bit more of a descending angle. That'll put a little bit more spin and will give it a chance to stop better. Something like this. One more time. I'm going to hit a little closer to it, have a little bit more open club face, and pick the ball, club up a little bit more abruptly. That will put not as much sand between the club and the ball. It'll be coming at a little bit more of a descending angle. That'll put a little bit more spin and will give it a chance to stop better. Now, the next shot I might want to play is if I've got a lot of green. And I'll go ahead and use it here on this situation. The ball might run by the hole. But if I'm going to make the ball run a little bit where I have more green, then I won't open the club face quite as much. I won't pick up the club quite as much. And I'll hit a little further behind the ball. And you use that when you want the ball to release and run a long distance. A little squarer through the ball. Ball comes out, releases and runs. And again, I won't open the club face quite as much. I won't pick up the club quite as much. And I'll hit a little further behind the ball. Ball comes out, releases and runs. Now, we also might have a buried lie. Ball could be fried egg or a bad lie or anything. Now, I play that shot a little differently now, and then I picked up a little bit from Greg Norman. And Greg uses the heel of the club to get into the sand. What part of the club will penetrate the sand the most? And probably this little point right here of the heel. So instead of playing straight up, I move down where I penetrate the sand with the heel of the club. Open the club face rather than shut the club face. Bend over more, get a little further away from it. Pick the club up and drive that heel into the sand. With an open club face, the ball comes out fairly softly. And again, open the club face rather than shut the club face. Bend over more, get a little further away from it. Pick the club up and drive that heel into the sand. Make sure we follow through and release the club. Runs up to the hole. It's a very useful shot. I think to think about the shot that you have, how much green you have, how much of a bank you have, if you want to have to hit the ball up in the air. In other words, on a bank like this, I might have to get the ball up in the air. So I don't want to be hitting the shot and hitting a low bunker shot. I've got to get it up. So to get it up, I might put it a shade more up in my stance. If I want to hit it lower, I might move it back in my stance to make it run. All these things are part of bunker strategy, and the only way that you're going to find out how you play bunkers is to get out and fiddle around with it. Get in the bunker, try different situations, try to make the ball run, try to make the ball spin, play a few buried lies, find out what works for you. Try all these different techniques, but remember, the end result is try to find the best technique that gets the ball closest to the hole. After all, that's what we're trying to do. Putting isn't quite 50% of golf, but it almost is. Thinking things out before you stroke pays off just as much on the green as it does getting there. Most people think putting starts when you arrive here on the green. Not so. Putting really starts when you're right back there on the tee. Finding out where the pin is, finding out where I want to hit my tee shot, finding out where I want my second shot to go, finding out, how can I hit my second shot underneath the hole to leave myself in the easiest possible place to putt. We play practice rounds during golf tournaments, and you're playing your home course all the time. Look around you, observe, see where the drainage of the green goes, see where you've got your uphill slopes, see where your tough pin placements are, see where your easy pin placements are, see whether it makes a difference whether you're by the hole or short of the hole or to the right of the hole or the left of the hole. Assess all the situations. Put that on in your mind when you're back there on the tee. And if you have the ability to be able to stand on the tee and see where the pin is, then you sort of have some idea where you might want to play your tee shot to get the best advantage, to get in the best place on the green for your second shot, to be able to putt from the right area. All this is part of strategy of playing a golf hole. Leave your ball in the place that you can best make a putt. I mean, it's very important. I think I look around me and I see the grain on the green. I see you can check by the color of which way the grass is going. I find out, what side of the green I don't want to miss the ball on, have no chance for recovery. Now that part of the green might be all right under another day with another pin placement. But you have to assess all the situations, put it all together. And when you get done with it, you can play a more intelligent, more strategic, and more successful round of golf. When I get to the green, I look at the putt I have, look at the grain, look at the slope from behind the ball. And then walk around the side of the putt, check the slope on the side here, look at the cup, see what kind of an angle it's sitting, walk around behind the ball. Sometimes I find a little different break here than I found from the other side. I look at it, walk back around this side. Now, check the cup, check the slope. I can do this while my other playing partner is putting, while he is lining up his putt. I mean, the thing is, you don't want to waste a lot of time doing this. You don't want to hold everybody up by surveying the whole situation. But you want to make sure that you know what to do with a putt when you get up to it. You want to develop that routine so that when you stand behind here and get that last look at the putt and you walk up, you know what you want to do, you know where you want to hit it, you know what your chances are of making it, whether you feel comfortable. You want to get a good, positive thought in your mind. You want to say, okay, I'm 5, 10, 13, 14 feet from the hole. That's what I look like I have here. I've got maybe 4 or 5 inches of break to the right of the hole. It's a little uphill. I can be firm with it. I can give it a good run because the ball's not going to run very far by the hole. My chances of three-putting are very small. I certainly don't want to leave it short because I've got a putt that's very makeable. You get all those things in your mind. You get them firmly in your mind, and when you walk up to the ball, you take a couple of putting practice strokes, about a 13 or 14 foot stroke. You get that in your mind, you get it in your hands, you get that feel there. So when I walk up to that ball, I know what I want to do. I know I want to be positive. I want to get all the other things out of my mind, and my whole objective is to make this putt. So as I stand over the putt here, to get in my mind that I'm going to hit it, I know where I want to hit it, and then I hit it. Grain influences all putts no matter where you are. Even if you can't see it, it's there. And it's different in the northern part of the United States versus the southern part of the United States. If you're putting on bent grass greens in the northern part of the United States, or even if you have bent grass in the south, the grass always grows towards the drainage. Find out your general drainage of your property, and that's going to be your dominant grain. Then you look at the green and see where the drainage on that green goes. And that combination is going to be probably where most of your putts are going to break. You go to the southern part of the United States and you have Bermuda grass greens. You look for the setting sun, and the setting sun is generally in the southwest. So if you're putting in the summertime on Bermuda grass greens, they're going to break towards the southwest. You can count on that. So remember, drainage in the northern part of the United States, southwest for Bermuda grass greens. The long putt. What do you really try to do on a long putt? Realistically, are you thinking of holding a putt from this distance? Or are you really trying to two-putt it? Well, I think realistically, anytime you have a putt that's going to go up a hill, break to the right, go down a little hill, up over a rise, come down a hill, and break left, you're not really thinking of holding it. What am I thinking of? I'm thinking of trying to get the ball close to the hole, shoot as low a score on this hole as I can, and get down in the least number of strokes. Obviously, two-putt is my thought. Distance is the important thing. And whether we want to leave the ball short of the hole or beyond the hole, what's the next best putt to leave ourselves? I mean, in this particular putt here, it really doesn't make any difference whether you're a little short or a little beyond, but so we try to work on either leaving it somewhere in the area of 4 feet short of the hole to 4 feet beyond. I've got 8 foot to hit it in here. And so I've got sort of like a big old bucket up there to hit the ball in. And I think about it, and I'm a little uphill. I'm a little bit probably into the green. The drainage comes off the green, so I'm going to have to hit it pretty hard. Actually, the wind's coming. The wind is definitely a factor in putting. The wind's coming a little bit right to left, so it's not a big factor on this particular putt, but sometimes it is. So we want to think about all those things, but when we get up to the ball, I want to make up my mind what I want to do. Make up my mind that I'm going to hit the ball just left of the hole because it's got a left break, then a right break, and then back to the left. I'm going to look at it and say, okay, I've got 10 foot, 20 foot, 30 foot, 40 foot, 50 foot. It's about a 60-foot putt. I'm thinking 60 foot. I want to get that feel in my putting stroke right here. I've got 60 feet I'm thinking about. Once I've got that in my mind, once I know what I want to do, I want to get up and make a positive stroke and try to make sure I hit it that right distance. Okay, now that's a pretty good putt. A little 3-foot putt. Probably one of the most difficult shots in golf, but really should be one of the easiest. Why is it one of the most difficult? Because it's embarrassing to miss it. You stand up over it, you know you should make it. Your partners know you should make it. Everybody knows you should make it. And then you stand there and say, gee, if I miss this, I'm going to be embarrassed. Well, what you do is you take your mind off of what you're doing. Put your mind on making this putt. Once you miss it, there's no way to recover from this shot because, you know, well, how are you going to recover? By hitting a 6-inch putt into the hole? You've got to make this putt, and you've got to make them all. Sure, you're going to miss one every once in a while, but for the most part, let's be positive. And what I try to do is I have 4 different putts here. I have an uphill, a downhill, a right to left, and a left to right break. And what I do is I pick a spot on that hole that I'm going to try to hit the ball, and I try to drive it into that spot. When I'm putting that uphill putt, I pick the back of the hole dead center. If it's a straight putt, that's where I want to hit it. If I'm putting the right to left putt, I pick a spot, let's just say it's the top of the cup. That's where I want to hit the ball. If I have this downhill putt, I pick the front edge of the hole because the ball is going to continue to roll. And I pick that spot at the front edge, and I try to hit it to that front edge spot. And the left to right putt, I try to take that. If I'm going to pick the spot at the top of the hole here, that's the spot I hit. I want to aim it and hit it at that spot. Obviously, up the hill, I pick the back of the hole because I want to make sure that I get it up there and into the hole. Downhill, I pick the front of the hole because I want to get it just over the edge. And I hit it medium firm on both the side hill putts. That's how I putt short putts. Stand here, make up my mind what I want to do, aim it at that spot in the back of the hole, and hit it there. I pick the spot on the right edge of the hole, aim it, and hit it in there. I've got the putt going down the hill. Now I'm going to try to hit it at the front edge of the hole. Aim it there, and hit it there. Now the putt left to right, I'm going to aim it at the left side edge of the hole, sit my putter there, make up my mind I'm going to do it, and hit it there. Now if you can be positive on these little short putts, you're not going to miss very many of them. But if you're worried about missing them, you're worried about being embarrassed, you're going to miss a lot of them. So be positive. Pick a spot and drive it home. To close this putting segment, you know, it's just as important to have a stroke as all the strategy in the world. Now, I think a stroke is a very individualistic thing. I think whether you have a tap stroke, a long, smooth stroke, inside out, outside in, I don't think that makes a whole lot of difference. It's whatever works for you and whatever you're comfortable with and how you can line up best. And people have asked me for years, Jack, why is your head behind the ball? Why is your right arm so low? Why is your right shoulder so low? Why do you not putt with your putter going through the ball low rather than high? Well, it just happens to be the way I line up to a putt and the way it feels comfortable to me. I've tried to putt with my right hand being right dead behind the ball. I started doing that my first year on the tour. A little tip from Jackie Burke back in 1962 really helped me. I was really struggling when I first started, and I was putting with my right hand up on top. I moved my right hand under and immediately started putting well. I dropped my right arm down, my right shoulder, and what it did, it fit with the other part of my stroke, which was my posture, being behind the ball and looking down the line of the target. I've always looked down the line of the target, behind the putt, and my right arm and right hand has sort of acted like a piston, back and forth, right here, right down the line of the target. My left hand has just kept everything solid. Now that happens to be the way I putt. It really isn't important whether you putt that way or you putt some other way. Whatever way is comfortable for you is going to be the best way for you. Whatever way you can get the ball in the hole is going to be the best way for you. That happens to be the best for me, and I get the ball in the hole better that way than any other way. We complain a lot about golf's testing situations and trouble shots, but the challenges they present are really a big part of the game's appeal. Let's look at the best way to meet them. Driving into the wind or with a left to right wind, to me, are the two most difficult tee shots you can hit. I think driving with the wind behind you or the wind off the right is very easy because it's very natural to make a nice full swing, make a nice complete backswing, and hit the ball from the inside. But the natural tendency into the wind and with a left to right wind is to not complete your backswing. Never get your left shoulder behind the ball. I think when I'm here, I'm trying to drive myself here, and I get back, and I only get it back about halfway, and then I come open, and I block and hit the ball out the right. Is that a familiar shot? You're darn right it's a familiar shot. It's a familiar shot for me, too. So when I'm playing with the wind off my left, or I'm playing with the wind in my face, I try to do one thing in particular. I want to make sure that I get well behind the ball with my left shoulder. Get back in here so that I can get a complete release and stay back behind the ball, get the ball in the air. Now, that does another thing for me, too. When I get back behind the ball, I'm going to hit the ball from the inside, which means I'm going to come into the ball at a low angle. When I come into the ball at a low angle, I'm going to hit the ball out with very little spin on it with the driver. If I come with a short swing and come down on top of the ball, I'm then going to put a lot of spin on the golf ball. So I'm going to hit a slice more than likely. With a left or right wind, obviously that's carried off, and into the wind, the ball balloons up in the air. So the object is try to hit the ball with very little spin, drive it through the wind. To drive it through the wind, I make sure that this left shoulder makes a complete backswing. I'll show you what I mean. Use this little tip. I think it'll improve your driving. Here we are again at the 9th hole at the Loxahatchee. 431-yard par 4. Wind left to right, blowing pretty hard. I kind of find that it's a difficult situation sometimes to keep a driver in the fairway. You'll find that a lot of times when you get a left to right wind, the ball wants to slip away from you. Because a driver, it doesn't put a lot of spin on it. The ball gets up and just sort of slips. And I'll quite often take a 3-wood under those conditions because it's more important for me to hit the ball in the fairway than to worry about distance. So I sit here and think about it. I said, well, can I get a 3-wood out far enough? Yes, the left to right wind is helping a little bit. It's going to hurry the ball on. The driver's going to hit the ground and be moving left to right and move through the fairway. But if I take this 3-wood, I can get a little bit more loft. I can get a little bit more spin on the golf ball. I can drive it into the wind down the left side, and when it hits the fairway, it'll hit a little softer. Yes, maybe I'm going to lose 10, 15 yards, but I'm going to end up in the fairway with a little bit easier shot to the green. So I'll change my tee by moving the ball down a little bit, throw away my driver, aim up the left side of the fairway, making sure I get a good full turn, make up my mind what I'm going to do, and then hit it solid. Nicely in the fairway, in play. You know, I think the hardest thing to do is to step up to a tee and be uncomfortable with the club you have in your hand. If you're uncomfortable with a driver, switch to a 3-wood. If you're uncomfortable with a 3-wood, switch to a 4-wood or to a long iron. Particularly in pressure situations, if you need to put the ball in play, don't play a club you're uncomfortable with. Get it in play. Get off the tee. Get past the awkward situation. Then you can go play golf. Playing into the wind is a very, very difficult situation. The natural tendency is to hit the ball harder. The harder you hit it, the more spin you put on it. The more spin you put on it, the more the wind's going to affect the ball. If you hit it straight, it's going to balloon it. If you hit it with a little slice, it's going to accentuate it going off to the right. If you hit a little hook, it's going to accentuate it going off to the left. Put you in a very awkward position. All these problems are caused by one thing: spin. So, and the harder you hit it, the more spin you put on the golf ball. Now, I'm sitting here at 180 yards from the hole, and I've even accentuated the situation by having an elevated position to play to a lower green. That even makes it tougher because obviously anything that's going to be faded or hooked is going to move further offline because of falling further. Most people will try to take a 5-iron, let's assume the pros, from 180 yards and try to hit it hard into that wind. Well, that spin is going to move the ball all over the place if they don't hit it just absolutely perfectly. So what is the natural thing to do? Go down one club, play a 4-iron, but that still means you're still going to have to hit the ball hard. Quite often, I'll go down to a 3-iron or even a 2-iron sometimes. I've got a 3-iron here in this situation, and what I try to do is take spin off of the golf ball so that the wind doesn't have any effect on the golf shot, and the ball moves through the wind with very little effect. So how do I do that without hitting it too far? Well, if I make this a short golf club, maybe choke it down and maybe make it like a 7-iron length with a 3-iron loft, then I'm going to get about a 5-iron distance. And that is the theory. So here we are. I stand up to the ball with my short grip. I want to just take a normal swing, normal golf shot, but move the ball through the wind without spin. That ball landed a little short of the green and rolled onto the green. How many times do you roll the ball onto the green into the wind? Not very often with spin. But if you don't have any spin, the ball will just go through the wind, hit with very little force on it, and just run. It's a very, very useful shot when you're playing in windy conditions. You know, when you're playing in the wind, you're not always as lucky as we are in Florida, where you have a pretty consistent wind, and the wind, you throw up some grass and you can pretty well tell which direction the wind's blowing. A lot of times you're playing in the trees, and you bend down, you throw up grass, it goes one direction, the trees are blowing another, the flag's blowing another direction, and you really don't know what to do. Well, one thing that I generally look at are the clouds. Clouds above the trees are going to be generally going in a consistent direction. So I come up, I'll throw my grass up, I'll look up at the clouds. If they're in a consistent direction, then I know that's what the wind's going to do. I think it makes it a lot easier to be able to select your club if you get a general overall flow. Sure, you're going to get fooled sometimes by swirling winds in the trees, but that's a good general thought. The rough. Awful stuff in it, but sometimes you get in it. And no matter how well you plan, sometimes you get a lie like I've got here. You know, the first thing you do is you've got to look at what kind of a shot you've got. I've got about 150 yards left to the green. I've got water to the left. I've got a bunker to the left. I've got a deep valley to the right of the green. I have some fairway short. I have maybe 30 yards that I need to carry the ball in front of me. And I've got a lie that I'm not sure that I can hit 20. I think I just basically should turn around, play the shot out sideways, take my medicine, don't compound my error. I've hit it 35, 40 yards. That's as far as I could hit it. Now I've got 110 yards left. I still have a chance for 4, and probably not going to make any worse than 5. When you're in the rough, there's a technique of how to get the ball out. But I think first you've got to understand what really happens to a golf club in the rough. What happens is, when you hit a shot with a normal golf swing, you're generally hitting the golf ball from the inside. Your club comes in at a low angle, starts catching on the grass, and the hosel of the club is what really hangs up. It hangs up, turns the club over, and generally speaking, the ball will come out low left. So generally speaking, somebody with a flat golf swing has a very, very difficult time of playing out of the rough. So if somebody with a flat swing has trouble, obviously you must use an upright swing and an open club face to counteract that situation to hit a good shot. So what I try to do is I try to open my club face slightly at address, stand a little bit more upright, pick the club up very abruptly, and cut across the ball slightly, trying to minimize the amount of contact that the hosel is going to get into the grass, and sort of slip the club through the grass and let the ball come out with a slight fade. That's the general idea of how I go play a fade. Now let's try the first shot, and I'll show you in slow motion what's going to happen when you make a flat golf swing out of the rough. Turn the club face over, ball's left, boom, into the water. Now, if I take basically the same lie, which was a reasonable lie in the rough, it doesn't have to be a bad lie to get that kind of a thing. Can't even get a reasonable lie in this rough. Now, I try the same basic lie, open the club face slightly, play the ball up in my stance a little bit, take a very upright swing, stand up tall, and cut across it, then the ball should slip out and up in the air and fly. And should come down somewhere up around the green. If you apply this method to getting the ball out of the rough, I think you're going to find your recovery shots to be a lot better. There are two basic techniques that I use for playing shots out of the rough, and they're really dictated by what shot I have to play. If I can take the ball and carry it all the way in the green, that is my preferred method. And to do that, I use an open club face, play the ball up in my stance, try to hit it as high as I can, because the ball's not going to have any spin on it, and try to land it as softly as I can on the green. I do that by having an open club face, ball up in my stance, aim slightly to the left of my target, pick the club up to the outside, and cut across the ball and throw the ball up softly. Second situation is that I have a lie that I can't carry to the green, so I have to run the ball. So I have to play a shot that the ball is going to land short of the green and run onto the green. Well, if that's the case, then I still want the ball coming out from an open club face, but I'll play the ball a little further back in my stance. I'll pick it up and I'll hit down on it a little bit more rather than sort of sweeping it or up on it, and make the ball move forward at a little faster pace so that when it hits the ground, it'll run.